Ethos, pathos, and logos. Three Greek words that apply to. Wait a minute. I thought it applied to pizza eating mutant ninja turtle characters. But my students have assured me over the years that no, that's not them. They're artists or something. All right. But they are three Greek words, and I feel that these three Greek words embody the idea of good communication well beyond anything that you might think of in a public speaking class. So let me talk about them just a little bit. Obviously, in the lecture, I spend a lot of time going over exactly what they are and how they apply to the class. But again, I want to talk just a little bit more about it. Now, these three elements, as they're called, are discussed in chapter 1. Now you're thinking, Ray, we're 15 weeks into this class and you're just getting back to chapter 1? Well, yeah, okay. In fact, they're on, let me get the page out here. They're on page 8. Now, I didn't rip the book apart. This is a loose leaf copy. But the authors of this book list them on page 8. Now, I complain about the authors in this book a lot, especially in class because it's kind of fun. And you might think, well, if you don't like the book, right, why don't you write your own? Nah, it ain't going to happen at this point. The book it's a good book. But yes, obviously I want to emphasize things that perhaps the authors don't. And these three elements, ethos, pathos, and logos, I feel are far more important than the little bit of text that is given to them on page 8. Now, these three elements come to us from Aristotle, and again, I talk about Aristotle in the lecture that's attached to all of this. And I mentioned that, Aristotle lived 2,500 years ago, and he wrote this book about giving speeches. It's called The Rhetoric. Rhetoric's just another word for speaking, and speaking in a prepared manner. Okay, so he wrote this book 2,500 years ago, and sure enough, it's still around. No, this is not a 2,500-year-old copy. How I wish. Although that would be in Greek, which I can't read. This one's in English. So it's still around. Why? Well, because what Aristotle talks about in here is so important in the way we communicate with one another that it's lasted for millennia, not just centuries, but millennia. And the heart of his book is ethos, pathos, and logos. And it's also the heart of public speaking. And as far as I'm concerned, it's part of our everyday communication experiences. We deal with these three little Greek words all the time. Some examples. I start with ethos. Ethos, the English word that you might think of that comes from ethos, is ethics or ethical. But what he's really talking about in this book, Aristotle, is the character of the speaker. Is this person you're listening to, I'm an example, is this person you're listening to credible? Why should you listen to me? Now, hopefully I have, some automatically built-in credibility when you listen to me because you say, well, he's my teacher. Okay. Have you looked at my curriculum vitae? No, but that's all right. But you might think, well, the college hired him, so he must be credible. He must be qualified to teach a class like this. And indeed, I do have degrees in communications. So I have some built-in credibility. If I were talking about, if I got on my computer and recorded a lecture on neurotransmission in the cerebellum of the human brain, you might think, what? Why is he talking about that? Where is his ethos, his credibility? Okay. But we do this in everyday speaking. We do this in interpersonal communication. We're constantly trying to convince people that they should listen to us because we have the quote unquote credibility. It can be something as simple as which restaurant you want to go to, but it's there. Ethos is always there. Pathos is very similar. Pathos means in Greek, basically it means emotion. There's more to it than that, but for our purposes, just think of it as emotion or emotional content. And once again, the reason we have to have that emotional content in our communication, whether it's one-on-one or to a room full of people, is that emotional content helps you, the speaker, connect with the listeners. If they don't think that you have an emotional buy-in to whatever you're talking about, there's no connection. Why should, it's just flat and uninteresting. So emotion is extremely important in any kind of presentation. And this is one reason I have you start with a dramatic reading, because it gives you a chance to kind of work on developing that sense of emotion and storytelling in the presentation. The second speech, which we'll get onto here pretty soon, is the self-introductory speech. I do more with that speech than a lot of the other communication instructors, because I feel like that's a good place to really develop the idea of storytelling. So that's a big part of it. So ethos is credibility, ethics, if you like. Pathos is all about emotion. Oh, by the way, another place that you see pathos all the time is advertising. And I talk about this in the lecture too. Advertising. All advertising, and I mean it, all advertising is about pathos, emotional content. Okay, well, if you take these pills, old man, your memory will last longer. Okay, emotional content. If you eat this organic food, it'll be good for you. Emotional content. If you use this particular face cream, you can get rid of some of this stuff. Oh, there you go. So, emotional content, and we constantly see it all the time in advertising. The third element is logos. Logos is a fascinating concept, a 5-letter Greek word that means, well, its basic translation, literal translation, simply means word. W-O-R-D, word. Right? But it contains so much more. It's kind of like love, another 4-letter word, which has such deep meaning to it. And, well, an example here is, in Western culture, the Bible. All right, in the very first book of the Bible, Genesis, it says, "In the beginning was God, and God said." He brings the universe into existence using words. In the Gospel of John, a little bit of Bible study here. In the Gospel of John, the very first verse, and again, John was writing in Greek, so he used the word logos. In the beginning was the Word, logos, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Now, in this particular case, John is talking about Jesus, but he chose to use the Greek word, logos. Logos, we get multiple meanings from logos in English. Logic, logistics, that sort of thing, all come from logos. You can just see that in the word. But it also has a much deeper meaning, and it means the spirit of the words themselves. What do those words really convey when you hear them? We have taken that even further with advertising, pretty much, with the concept of logo. You just drop the S and you get logo. What is a logo? Well, it's a symbol, isn't it? It's a symbol. And it's a symbol that represents, in most cases in modern society, a product. All right. The most famous or okay, I'm going to say the most famous logo in the world is probably the Nike Swish. I have had the good fortune to travel all across the world. I've been in some crazy places, some very remote places. And everywhere I've been, you know what I see? T shirts with Swish on them. It doesn't even have to say Nike. It doesn't have to say just do it. That little swish embodies, that logo embodies the spirit of the idea of athletics. So logos is a very, very interesting and powerful word. In the rhetoric, let's see here. I'm going to try to read this, and I'm going to keep my eyes on the book so I can see it well. All right. The orator, and that's a person, that's the speaker. The orator must not only try to make the argument of his speech demonstrative and worthy of belief, he must also make his own character look right and be able to influence the emotions or moral affectations of the jury who try the case. Now, he's talking about lawyers here, of course, in trying the case, but he's got it all in there. He says you've got to have all of this in to give a good presentation. And he's talking about lawyers, that's fine, and I talk about lawyers in the lecture. So I think you get it there. So ethos, logos, and pathos are all essential elements of good communication, not just a speech, but good communication. Now, the authors. Back to page 8. Oh my God. I can't get past it. Oh, I am going to go into page 9. All right. They list 4 elements. No. Now, Aristotle does talk about storytelling and the importance of storytelling in rhetoric. But the authors have gone and listed mythos as a 4th element. I think mythos is a subcategory of pathos in particular. Pathos, emotional content, is best delivered through storytelling. We connect with stories, and I've talked about this quite a bit already. So mythos, and of course you can think of an English word that derives from that, mythology. It's all about stories and culture and so on. Sure, it's an important part, but as far as I'm concerned, this is all about ethos, pathos, and logos. But the authors have it in there, so please make sure you take a look at it. And again, I carry on about it in the lecture itself. Oops, I almost put the page away. On page 8 and 9, the authors also talk about the 5 arts of public speaking. Now, Aristotle lived about 2,500 years ago. Well, about 2,000 years ago, you can see how up to date all of this is. About 2,000 years ago, a Roman lawyer named Cicero wrote a book about giving speeches. He was absolutely the most famous speech giver, speechifier in maybe in history. And his book survived too about giving speeches. And he lists the 5 arts of public speaking. They are invention, what it is you want to say and how you do it, arrangement, how you organize your thoughts and ideas, style, do you use imagery, do you bring things to life. Let me get page 9. I want to make sure I do it exactly the way they have it in the book. Memory. Now, I've told you don't have to memorize anything in this class. We're going to be working from notes and so on. But yeah, memory is obviously very important. People used to always memorize their speeches. They had tremendous powers to memorize that we've lost because, well, printing, video, and so on, we don't have to memorize as much. And then delivery, how you actually give the speech. So take a look at those as well. All right, so ethos, pathos, and logos. All right, it's not those turtle guys, but it certainly is important as any turtle. Maybe more important than turtles. So obviously you, I think, now understand how important I I believe all of this is in being able to not only give a talk, but have good communication skills overall. So there you go. Make sure you watch the lecture. Our next, my next lecture is going to be on listening, and I will post that on Thursday. This is chapter 3. And I know I told you at some point that part of a public speaking class is learning how to listen well. Most of the time, you're the audience, not the speaker. And so have good listening skills is tremendously important as well. So thank you for listening, and I will see you later. Take care.